The PlayStation 5 sure has been a weird process, hasn't it? Chip shortages, global plague, scalpers,
ancient curses fulfilled against gamers themselves,
etc. Well, this bad boy, BaneShake's Charlie, finally got on board. I was originally going to get one for Rocksteady's Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, since Arkham Asylum and Arkham Knight were my first titles on PS3 and PS4 respectively, but Gotham Knights just had to go and cancel the last-gen port, so I upgraded early. How dare they focus on making the game function on a single console without splitting their development team? Bastards. With this in mind, I want to take a look back at the PS4. Oh, you want me to share? Fine. I'm looking back at my favorite titles on PlayStation 4 today. I am limiting myself to keep the list interesting. Only one game per series to keep variety high, and I have to have played it on PS4 first. If I played it on another system and then played it again on PS4, it does not count for this list. Also, something to consider if your favorite game isn't on this list. There are a couple of possibilities. One, I just haven't played it. Don't worry, I could definitely always play insert title here at some point, and insert title here will definitely make its way onto my list then. Subscribe so you don't miss my video updating insert title here in. The other possibility is that your favorite game sucks. You suck, and you should fall in a ditch, sucker. Number 10, LEGO DC Supervillains. Number 10 was actually one of the hardest spots to fill on my list. Everything else fell into place relatively naturally, but this one was a tight race. I'll do a bunch of honorable mentions later in the video. LEGO DC Supervillains finally won out for this one though, for a few reasons. I've been a fan of the TT LEGO series since its inception all the way back in 2005, and have always at least liked each entry, but this one was the first one in several years that felt impactful. It's, hands down, the best interconnected open world they have put together yet. It's rife with character and detail, and it's very much a love letter to all things DC, especially for the titular villains, many of whom get a pretty even chance to shine in the campaign. It also tells an interesting, original story that does some novel things for the franchise. The best part, though, is such a simple addition executed perfectly. In this game, you get to create your own villain who actually takes part in the plot. Whatever you can come up with, that's one of the main characters. Any villain, really. General Mustache, the Cunning Lingerer, Mitch McConnell. Probably shouldn't do that last one. He would just filibuster the Legion of Doom, and you and I both know he'd just be giving the side eye to Ra's al Ghul the whole time for all the wrong reasons. I played with myself as the character, and seeing me running around escaping from the law with Killer Frost, blowing shit up with Joker and Harley Quinn, fighting alongside the Suicide Squad, it made me squee like the little DC fangirl that I am. Number 9, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This game has too many titles. Everyone is allowed to have one colon. If you have 2 colons, you are a freak. Despite that, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the best game Star Wars has had in a while. It's a purely single-player experience in well-crafted locales with a great combat system. Unlike so many Star Wars games that focus on the Force powers, this one is primarily about the lightsaber. Careful parries, dodging, supplementing with the Force when opportunistic. It's surprisingly challenging for a licensed title, bringing to mind the Soulsborne titles, but the difficulty settings give more room for error if you don't like getting spanked by giant frogs. The story focuses more on personal character stakes than planet-destroying massive stakes. The whole cast of allies and enemies are worthwhile additions to Star Wars canon, and the Space Necromancer is way more attractive than a Space Necromancer has any right to be. It's the best Star Wars game in a long time. Number 8, Injustice 2. Oh cool, I'm 3 entries in and 2 of them are already DC. I'm starting to think a channel called BaneShake might be biased. I like fighting games, but I'm not necessarily great at fighting games. I go online and people who've been playing fighting games since they were on arcade cabinets back in 1992 teach me what my own butt tastes like. Metaphorically. So, having a fighting game with an abundance of single-player content makes a big difference in my life. Injustice 2 obviously has the NetherRealm Studios special, a story mode competent enough to keep you engaged, though it's not going to change your life. That's only like 6 hours, though. I mostly play around in the multiverse, a series of endlessly rotating battle towers. Some are themed around specific characters, or have unique modifiers that impact gameplay. Regardless of which ones you decide to play, it's a great way to not have to go online. This mode is rich for single-player content. Of course, the big new feature here is the gear system. Each character has unique types, and you unlock pieces that change the look, or stats, or less commonly, the special moves themselves. So now you can build a character to exactly fit your playstyle. Like giving a character a loadout to just maximize straight damage in the off chance I get a punch in. Visually, some of the gear is a little over-designed, if not downright ugly, like 90% of Deadshot's masks, which is a shame considering that his base model mask is the best Deadshot mask I've ever seen. But because you unlock gear pretty frequently, it's easy to just play until you like the look of something new. It's a great system and easily trapped me in for quintuple the time I spend in other fighting games. Number 7. The Talos Principle. Puzzle games frequently need a good hook for me to see them through to the end. Not because I'm dumb or anything, but that actually is a possibility. The Talos Principle has the perfect kind of hook for me, in case you couldn't tell, by it being part of this video. So you're a robot in a digital world, like the fictional world is supposed to be digital. I know all video games are digital. And God starts speaking to you, commanding you to solve puzzles, but biblically sounding. There's also a digital library assistant, Milton, who deliberately picks apart the flaws or contradictions in any and all answers you try to give him, and documents and files fill in the rather significant context outside of your digital world. It's very philosophical and mindful in a way that will be easily approachable to pretty much anyone, which is very surprising considering it was made by the Serious Sam people. I've always been naturally inclined to philosophy on my own, due to a lifelong history of existential crises always causing me to, frankly, overanalyze every aspect of my thoughts and ideas on loop, and after a very theologically exposed childhood, I can also appreciate how the game handles the religious iconography and parallels, and it uses expectations from those to go interesting places as it unfolds. Of course, this would fall apart if the puzzles sucked, but they don't. It uses pretty straightforward concepts, like reflecting light beams and not getting shot, and builds them up at a mostly even difficulty curve, though there are definitely some in there that really stumped me at first. Thankfully though, there's always other places you can solve other puzzles, which sometimes even helps inspire the insight I needed for the ones I was stuck on. Even if you don't play a lot of puzzle games, I highly recommend the Talos Principle. Number 6. Assassin's Creed Origins. Hey, did you know that I like Assassin's Creed? I've already written like a thesis paper's worth of videos talking about the series here on this channel, so it's one of the more obvious statements I could make, but that's not the point. The PS4 can actually play most major entries, barring the original game, and a significant number of spin-off titles too. So, disregarding everything I simply replayed on PS4, we have 5 major titles. It's really the newest 3 RPG titles, most definitive of the modern version of the franchise, and while there are some strengths and some complaints that can be leveled against all 3, Origins is the one that unabashedly had the biggest impact on me. Origins was the first game to downplay the parkour and social stealth in favor of a hacky-slashy sprawling open world, and while that trade-off is starting to feel a little less special as of the more recent titles, it absolutely was a shot of adrenaline the series needed to get out of a fatigued slump for people less obsessive than BaneShake's Charlie. The real reason it worked so well was how insanely finely crafted Origins is. Despite being a large chunk of Egypt, the attention to detail is astounding. You could spend hours on videos talking about some of this stuff. It applies to the writing, too. Bayek is absolutely top tier for the series' protagonists, with impeccably defined, relatable, and understandable motivations. He's trying his damnedest to do good in a morally gray world of secrets and vile conspiracy, but there is no unified organization of assassins yet. Obviously, thinking about the title for half a second implies where this story has to go at some point, but it's the process of getting there that's so worthwhile. Pay attention and you'll pick up on the subtle inception of the titular creed and its tenets in key moments. The end of the Ptolemaic years are especially interesting for the setting. The really ancient stuff, like the pyramids, is already ancient by the time Bayek rolls around, and the game keeps emphasizing these themes of the old dying off to the new. Old Egypt was already in decline to Grecian spread, but time passed on that too, and now both Old Egyptian and Old Greek ways are in decline to Roman imperialism. Bayek is literally the last of a heritage of Magi out serving the people for the pharaoh. It all makes the game feel like one tiny man trying to turn the tides of a world so incomprehensibly massive, which makes it one of the most memorable experiences in the series' history. Number 5. Alien Isolation. For a franchise I adore as much as Alien, there are comparatively fewer entries than a lot of series I actually enjoy. I love the first 2 movies, tolerate Covenant, mostly because Michael Fassbender made out with himself and it was hot, and enjoy a good handful of the comics. The DS game was also pretty neat. The problem seems to be that so many entries just don't know how to do the Xenomorph right. Thank God, Alien Isolation knows how to do the Xenomorph right. This thing is smart, this thing is relentless, and your weak-ass civilian guns really just tickle it. Even when you're not gripped in outright terror by the creature's presence, you're still intimidated and humbled by knowing it won't be far away, and that it can kill you faster than I can kill my dignity with self-deprecating humor here on my channel. Props to the AI team, because this thing is expertly programmed. It doesn't use any cheap tricks other games employ to keep their enemies dangerous. The Xeno has to track you based on clues you keep giving it, and it is constantly learning and adapting to your tricks. You gotta stay on your game with this thing, unless you really like getting taken from behind. It also does a pretty good job balancing how much tension you are dealing with throughout. There are Xeno-free stretches, where your main threat is creepy mannequin-looking androids or hostile human survivors, and then there are combinations of all 3 threats, where the other humans are egging on the Xenomorph, and there's an android that just keeps getting in your way, but if you fight it, the alien will hear you, and that is not ideal. The game does end up running a couple hours longer than the pacing might have preferred, but I was still more than willing to see it all the way through to the end. Alien Isolation is such a good spooky space game, it almost got to be one spot ahead of our next entry, itself another spooky space game. Number 4. Prey. Dishonored was my first big foray into the immersive sim. Yet I was slow to pick up Arcane's later title, Prey, because there was less enthusiastic reception around launch. And let me tell you, those people are fucking wrong. Prey is a goddamn gem, and it is damn good at what it does. So basically, you're on a space station, and there are aliens. That was too basic, let me try again. You're on a space station, and there are shape-shifting aliens who are also psychic. Much better. These guys, the Typhon, are these little tendrily hentai dudes. But this little form isn't able to take all that much damage, so they mimic inanimate objects, so that when you get close, they can get you. Rah! You have to be careful, because they could literally be anything. But sometimes they're also just bigger and more dangerous too, so then you're on the defensive from them, and it's easy to miss the shape-shifting ones because a big man-shaped hentai monster is power-walking after you. And it all just works for a clever gameplay loop. It's not full-on horror, since this guy is much less disturbing to look at than, say, a necromorph, but it's very successfully horror-adjacent, and has a very unique sense of paranoia due to said shape-shifting dilemma. Thanks to being an immersive sim, there are also a very large number of ways to complete any task, something that isn't as immediately obvious as it is in Dishonored, which might be why, early on, people were so wrong about it, but when you start to see the branching options and their consequences, it's very naturally entwined with the gameplay. The story goes interesting places. Naturally, because this is spooky sci-fi, scientists saw horrible abominations from beyond the stars and thought, hey, let's capitalize on those. So, you can also start dabbling with their powers, which has some risks. Obviously. The key is how the ending culminates. So frequently, games with choices have a clear, predictable, good choice and bad choice, and this one, it goes interesting places. I know I said that already, but I really don't want to spoil things. You'll be debating very hard what choices are actually the better option, and then things still go in unexpected directions, and yet no turn of events is ever not foreshadowed. I waited too long to play this one. Don't make my mistake. Play Prey. Number 3. Marvel's Spider-Man. When I was less tall, less hairy, and less old, Spider-Man was my favorite superhero. He's a great embodiment of what makes the genre so great. And honestly, The genre is so great, in no small part, because Spider-Man came along and influenced the course superheroes went down. However, there was a stretch in my life where Spider-Man media sort of didn't have that special spider spark of greatness. Until 2018, that is, and we had a mini Spider Renaissance. Two things really got Spider-Man that year. Into the Spider-Verse, which is great, but is not a video game and thus shall not be discussed here, and Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man, which is a video game and thus shall be discussed here. This is a game that remembers to do all the things a Spider-Man game should do. None of it is necessarily original, but all of it is necessarily well implemented. The web swinging actually has a good physics system, so you move with momentum and grace, like Spider-Man, instead of just tapping a button and webbing up to like an invisible point in the sky above. Combat is fast and more about maneuvering around and above your enemies so you don't get smooshed. There's some science, since Peter is science-y, and there is some stealth, since spiders naturally like to hide in the corner where you don't see them. There's one in your corner, right now. It's crawling closer to you. Just as important though, it remembers to tell a story with the proportional heart of a Spider-Man. You care about his relationships and struggles, and you know he's always trying to do his best, even when people are trying to smoosh him. You won't find a better Spider-Man game than Insomniac's Marvel's Spider-Man. Also, the spider from the corner is now crawling up your arm. Just thought I would let you know. Number 2, Bloodborne. I never really got into Dark Souls the way some people do. I have played a decent amount of the first game, which I have started as of this video across 3 save files, and I certainly respect every bit I have played, but it has yet to hook me in enough to get to the ending. I started Bloodborne on a whim, expecting it would go the same way, that I'd dick around for a while and then move on. I even made a goofy snake oil salesman named Sleazy Sal, assuming he would never see the endgame. But then I got fascinated. I was fascinated by the well-crafted horrors. I was riveted by how much faster and more aggressive the combat moved than Dark Souls. I had such a huge moment of elation the first time I discovered a shortcut back to a checkpoint, and the fact that even something so simple could feel so rewarding really did it for me. Unlike Dark Souls, which is a medieval fantasy on the surface, and then you realize it's actually cosmic horror, Bloodborne is Victorian horror on the surface. After that, who knows? Wink. It's like werewolves and trolls and British people. Spooky! This game is great. It uses its intimidating difficulty in a smart way, it has some of the best all-around gameplay design of this specific generation, and I can't get enough of it. Even if you skip out on other Souls-like games, I'd recommend you at least give this one a try. Honorable mentions! These are nowhere near comprehensive, but some honorable mentions. Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, almost made the list, but was barely edged out. The Nemesis system generates unique Uruks, and their relationship to each other and you plays out naturally based on what happens while you're playing. It's brilliant, and mechanically it plays like a neat bastard child between the older Assassin's Creed and Arkham, which is fun. Uncharted 4 was a cool expansion of the gameplay from the previous Uncharted's, and a very heartfelt story at that. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga upgraded the gameplay mechanics of the series into a very fun combination cover shooter slash hack and slash beat 'em up thing, which is a blast. It just sort of got double beaten out by another Star Wars and another LEGO title, so I put it here. Horizon Chase Turbo hooked me in a way racing games typically don't, but it's also a mobile game and that would feel weird to include elsewhere in this list. Finally, Until Dawn and Telltale's Batman: The Enemy Within are both great choose-your-narrative style games. Although, since players either like that kind of thing or they don't, and there's only so much gameplay you get out of such things, I couldn't justify the top spots, but they are still welcome here to wrap up the honorable mentions. Number 1, Batman: Arkham Knight. Batman: Arkham Knight is a damn fine game. It can't edge Arkham City out of my favorite spot in the series, but it sure as hell tries to. It was the first game I picked up this generation, my console is even the special edition PlayStation 4 that released with it, and it is undoubtedly the PS4 game I have gone back to the most, time after time after time. Its version of the free flow combat is my all-time favorite combat system in any game. There are so many options on how to handle combat, but each option has a metric bat ton of nuance to it as well. The sneaking in the previous games was already some of the best integrated stealth you can find in gaming, but here it gets so good. Enemies are actually smart enough to adapt to your tactics in clever and unpredictable ways, but you have enough tools at your disposal to keep turning the tables right back around on them. It's like a chess match, except instead of chess, you're choking sweaty dudes in dark corners. And that's hot. The story is always compelling, and ties the side missions into main events a little more naturally than prior entries. It is also full of twists and turns in a way that you can never be too sure what will happen next. Barring one really obvious twist. One twist is absolutely, egregiously predictable. If you've played it, you know the one. The other twists are good though. Everything else it executes is expertly less expected. It also, hands down, is one of the most detailed worlds I've ever seen in a game, and every inch feels carefully crafted. I can already hear some hecklers pitching in from the back. But the Batmobile. Y'all can shut the fuck up. The Batmobile is great. Chasing down speeding cars or racing around Riddler's racetracks is tight and responsive. And even though I'm not typically a huge fan of racing games, as I said in the honorable mentions, I freaking love this racing. The combat against the unmanned drones is like nothing else I've played in a game. I'd describe it as this weird triple combination of third-person shooting, minor bullet hell elements, and vehicular combat, and I dig it. I admit, though, Batmobile stealth is fucking dumb. One tank sneaking around to avoid even bigger tanks is weird. That is the place where the Batmobile stuff falls flat. But most of this is not that. Honestly, with as much as I just end up craving this game, it couldn't not be my number one for the generation. I'm all the time popping it back in for the challenge maps, or to mess around in an open world so filled with character, or even just to stare at very specific character trophies for absolutely no reason. I'm constantly saddened that there aren't more games doing the things Batman Arkham Knight did so well. And if Rocksteady's Suicide Squad ends up being even half the game Arkham Knight is, I suspect it'll be ranking high on my list next generation. So that's my list. 10 of them. Do you agree? Am I wrong? Please tell me if I am wrong in the comments. Don't even worry about putting together a counter-argument or anything. Just type, "You are wrong," and press post. Like and subscribe and the bell icon and all that other shit we greedy YouTubers demand if you feel so inclined in helping a moron further his channel. And keep an eye out, because who knows, there could be a PS3 version of this coming down the road.